I moved here when I was 29. So it's the place where I was able to feel most fully myself for the first time in my life. So we'll get into the details of that, because it might feel like that's a contradiction, but it's certainly true for me, and I know for many others as well.
I am fascinated by your answer. I resonate very much with the way that you described your upbringing, as I grew up the same exact way. What we had in our home was a very intentionally well-knit cultural fabric that told me and my sister, like, you're amazing because you're Black, you're amazing because you're female. Look at all of these cultural assets that you have access to. Look at this amazing history you have access to. And then you go outside and they're like, I don't know about you. And but I found my salve in the same things, in those, in Black artists, music, theater, film, books. That's how I was able to create a safety net for myself outside of the house. And it never occurred to me that you, growing up in the UK, would see the things that were coming out of the States and have that same sense of belonging. I'm fascinated by that. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's because of something that you just said. It was because we were Black, because we were able to take strength from our Blackness, that was able to permeate all of our art, our music, athletics, fashion, architecture. It's informed, or it's informative of so much of our experience, and that's a real strength. It's a strength for diverse societies. I don't use that word very often, and I use it very specifically here, because the diversity of cultures, of thought, are what I think knits together a strong society. And for African American culture, even though in so many ways, so many of the challenges here in the US are harsher, and I say harsher because they exist elsewhere, they exist everywhere, quite frankly. Anti-Blackness has had such a far-reaching effect on this earth, but the salve to that has been, for me, African American culture specifically, because of the strength and the endurance, and what has been now, centuries worth of us succeeding in spite of, and then also because of what we were able to hold on to, I think.
Hey y'all, it's me again. Welcome back to the Big We Podcast. We are season 5, episode 4. How the time flies. I'm gonna jump right in today because we have a really incredible interview on today's episode, and it's kind of long, so I won't make you suffer through a long monologue today, although I always have something to say, but next time maybe. Let's just jump into the pop 3, shall we? Well, how are you? I miss y'all. I feel like I haven't been in the studio for so long. Oh my God, y'all. I've been traveling so much. I would like to be at home, please. Give me like 3 weeks. I'm going to be home for a whole month. It's going to be fantastic. I'm very excited. Okay. All right. Pop 3. Ooh. Oh my gosh. Pop 3 is so exciting today. Okay. I was on Instagram the other day and I was scrolling. I'm lying. That's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. I was texting with my friend. That's not true. I was on Instagram because I posted about this incredible show I went to go see called Jaja's African Hair Braiding on Broadway. We're going to talk about it in a couple episodes. Don't worry. I'm going to tell you all about it. And my friend, Jeffrey Jackson Scott, texted me and was like, I am going to see it on Wednesday. And then he was like, I'm just leaving LA. I'm on my way to New York because there's a 18-hour long reading of the autobiography of Malcolm X at the Metropolitan Opera. And I was like, what are you even talking about? They did an 18-hour full back-to-back from 6 o'clock in the morning to midnight influencer reading of the autobiography of Malcolm X by Alex Haley, as told to by Alex Haley. And the reason why they did it is because they're about to debut an opera at the Met about Malcolm X's life. So let me give you the dates. It's November 3rd to December 2nd. So if you're in New York or you can find your way to New York, please go and get tickets to the Met so you can see the opera. The opera is actually not a new piece. It was written and produced for the first time in 1986. This is the first time it's going to be at the Met. This is a really huge deal. I've heard that the production is incredible. I'm very, very excited. You know I'm trying to go. You already know. I'm going to be in New York 2 more times before it closes. I have no time in my schedule, but I'm going to find my way to the Met to be able to go see that show. I tried to watch the reading online. I was on the airplane when he told me about it. And so I'm like Googling and looking on their Instagram and doing all the things. And they had some amazing people. Dr. Shabazz, Malcolm X's daughter, was part of the reading. Folks from Alex Haley's family was in the reading. Leslie Odom Jr. was a part of the reading, but they didn't stream it live. Like, why would y'all do that? Why would y'all have an 18-hour reading about the autobiography of Malcolm X and not let us watch it? But it was free and open to the public, so all you had to do was like go online and register for a ticket. But we didn't get to see it. Maybe one day they'll release the video on PBS or something. I don't know, but one can hope. Okay, so let's go see Malcolm X at the Met. Hi. My name is Anasa, and I'm the Executive Director of the Big We Foundation. We're on a mission to unleash social imagination of those who go often unheard. Through our 3 priority areas, girls and women, restorative economics, and environmental wellness, we're building a world reimagined from our point of view. Join the movement towards building a well culture and well communities. Experience sustained safety, joy, love, and abundance. It's time for change. Be a part of the Big We Foundation. To stay updated, subscribe to our YouTube channel and join our email list by clicking the link found in the video description below. So next on the Pop 3 is this incredible film called Lakota Nation versus the United States, okay? So do you remember I think it was season 1 with me and Calvin, we had a really beautiful conversation with Kevin Killer and Sarah Eaglehart. Well, our friend of the pod, Sarah Eaglehart, has produced this film called Lakota Nation versus the United States. And this movie is a documentary and it chronicles the fight of indigenous folks fighting for the Black Hills land. So this movie is very important for us to be watching right now. There's so many conversations happening around the world about land rights, about land back campaigns, about the power of land, where you're talking about community wealth building in the South, in the Middle East, in the indigenous lands, in the Midwest, in Africa, all over the world. We're talking about land rights, and land back. So this is a really important film for us to be watching, for us to be able to have that little bit of information and education. And of course, we love Sarah and want to be able to support her. So let's go watch this movie. It is streaming on Amazon, I believe. Third in the Pop 3, I'm so excited about this because it's nerd time, everybody. It's time for the nerds to come out. Neil deGrasse Tyson has a new book out. Are you excited? I'm excited. Now, y'all remember, I think last year we talked about Neil deGrasse Tyson on the pod because me and my nephew went to go see him in a total nerd lecture in Memphis at the Orpheum. He did this incredible show that really talked about all the wonders of the universe in a way that we could understand it. Because, of course, Neil deGrasse Tyson is a genius and he uses words that I don't understand. But that day I understood everything he said. So he now has a book that has all the other words that we can all understand. The book is called To Infinity and Beyond. You all know that Neil deGrasse Tyson has this incredible show called Star Talk, where he talks about outer space and the universe and black holes and all the little phenomena that we don't understand here on this planet. And he has now translated all of these amazing stories and amazing facts to this incredible book. When I tell y'all, this book is so beautiful. The images in this book, the language in this book, the stories in this book, it's just mind-blowing. I can't wait for y'all to see this book. Okay, so the book is already out. It came out in September. So wherever you buy your books, you can find it. I'm going to encourage you to buy from a Black bookstore, an independent bookstore, a neighborhood bookstore. not a big box or online. Okay. Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. So, I can't wait for you to meet Chiké today. On our main feature, we're going to be talking about the Kehinde Wiley exhibit called The Archaeology of Silence. I like completely on a whim, unexpected. You wake up one morning and then next thing you know, you're at a Kehinde Wiley exhibit. I had no idea that was going to happen that day. But a few weeks ago, I was in California. I was in the woods with this amazing organization called Harness. And it is this wonderful amalgamation of actors and other artists and social impact producers and activists. And we were having a retreat. And we had a whole half a day to kill in San Francisco. And this wonderful man named Chiké, who I had literally just met that morning, was like, I heard there's an exhibit. We should go to this exhibit. And the three of us, we went and spent the day at the De Young Museum in San Francisco and saw this breathtaking, heartbreaking, life-giving exhibit of the latest collection of Kehinde Wiley's work. Now, what I will tell you, it is already closed at the De Young, so if you did not see it there, you won't be able to. However, it is opening back up in Houston, okay? So from November 19th, 2023 to May 27th, 2024, the Archaeology of Silence will be at the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston. I cannot encourage you enough to go and see this exhibit. Maybe after you hear the conversation between me and Chiké, you will like pack your bags immediately and get ready to go. This is one of the most breathtaking things I've ever seen in person. I was weeping in the museum. I had to like put myself to the side because I was literally weeping in the museum more than once. So stunning, so touching, so beautiful. As is the man who I get to talk to today. Chiké Okonkwo is an actor and a producer and a writer and co-founder of an incredible new platform called Mansa, which is a streaming platform for Black stories. So, and it's free. So you can just go ahead and download that right now before you even hear from Chiké. Go on and open your phone. Your phone's already open, isn't it? Yes. Open your phone and download Mansa. Mansa is a free streaming platform. I already downloaded it. It's ridiculously incredible. So much amazing content. So Chiké is an actor primarily known for Birth of a Nation, the Nat Turner movie that was out several years ago. He was in Being Mary Jane. Of course, we all loved Being Mary Jane and loved him in it. So when you see his face, you'll be like, oh, that guy. Yes, that guy. And also La Brea, the show that's out right now. Well, it's not out because of the strike, but you know what I'm saying. The current show, La Brea, I think it's on NBC. I hope I got that right. And then for you video gamers out there, Call of Duty Vanguard, he plays one of the characters on Call of Duty Vanguard. I myself do not play video games, but I know that some of you do. So Chiké is a wonderful person, a brilliant person, a creative storyteller, and I'm so excited to get to have you listen to our conversation today. Take it away. Hi, Chiké.
Hello.
How are you doing? I'm actually really excited to see you.
Likewise. It's so good to be here.
Yes. So for folks out in the world, even though I'm very happy to see you and I feel like I know you very well, I don't know you at all. Chiké and I met, I guess it's been a month,
Yeah.
A month ago at a retreat in the woods. We were surrounded by trees for 2 days. And then we spent a half a day together. I guess it was a whole day, huh?
It was a full day, yeah.
A full day together with another friend who was at the retreat in San Francisco. We went on a little bit of an adventure.
We went on a yes and adventure. Just put it out there, see where it goes. And it took us to some great places.
I think that's actually what happened. So tell us about our adventure. Where did we go, Chiké?
So we started this retreat, like you said. I have to give you some huge props because the day started with you leading this beautiful group of about 100 artists and activists in just an artistic, spiritual journey. Wow. You solidified us in the space as we were leaving that space, and it was just a really wonderful way to end a really beautiful couple of days. But then our adventure was just beginning because we took about a 2-hour drive back to San Francisco. we were, as you say, in the middle of the woods, sort of out in central California. And when we got back to San Francisco, you hired a car, and three of us went on this journey. We went to the Young Museum in San Francisco, a place I hadn't been before. I'd been to San Francisco, just not to the museum before. And we managed to sneak in. I think it was only a few weeks left of the Kehinde Wiley exhibition titled An Archaeology of Silence. And it was just an incredible experience from start to finish. It felt fated. It had that element of the spirit involved in it, in that everything just sort of fell into place, and we were able to experience this exhibit with only not that many people around. So we got to spend some really good time with the pieces, and we listened to the audio as well. We heard Kehinde Wiley speaking himself. We heard really beautifully from Kehinde Wiley. So it was so nice to be able to hear the artist himself speaking about these pieces. And we heard really poignantly from the mother of Oscar Grant, who, Oscar, if you don't know, was murdered by San Francisco police. And it was just so powerful to hear her words and her spirit, the sort of the beauty of her spirit infused into these pieces of work as well. So it was, I don't need to go into all the details of all the day, but that was great.
It's so funny because when I hear you say Oscar Grant's name and hear you talk about his mother, like my mind goes immediately to one of those pieces. Like I'm just remembering standing so close to that piece with the cornrows and looking at the way, like even in sculpture, the hair was just the pieces. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to pause and I want to ask you a couple questions about yourself before we talk.
Yeah, please.
So I just want you to tell us what you want us to know about yourself. I'm literally like, I know nothing about you except
I love that.
Maybe we're not born in America. I don't know, but I suspect that maybe you came from someplace else.
This is as thick Mississippi accent as you'll ever come across.
I'm familiar with those thick Mississippi accents, and I'm not sure that that's what that is. I'll go for it.
So thank you. My name is Chiké Okonkwo. If you would like the full name, it's Chukwunwike Okonkwo. It's an Igbo name. Chukwunwike means God is my strength. I always like to say that when I was a kid, my mum would shout Chukwunwike a lot, and she was literally invoking the strength of God to deal with this rambunctious and energetic child that she had. So, words are powerful. And I think in Igbo culture, in lots of African cultures, we're very deliberate about the naming of things and the way that words are used. This says nothing about me, or maybe it says everything about me that I'm about. One of my favorite writers, Chinua Achebe, it says a lot about me to quote a writer, just something I do. I love stories. I love words. But Chinua Achebe wrote that words are the palm wine with which words are spoken. And it's just that thing of just being able to enjoy the words as you're speaking them. And that's been a big part of my background and my upbringing. And so to answer your question more directly, I'm an actor, an artist, an activist. And I have spent a good portion of my life just telling stories, saying words, beautiful words that I've really appreciated being able to say. And that brought me in my journey from the UK to New York, now about 13 years ago, and began the sort of American chapter of my life and my work and my career, which has been, for me, the deepest and the most rewarding portion of my career so far, in the work I get to do and the people I get to work with and the people I get to represent. So, yeah, it's been a journey in doing, it feels like I do lots of different things, but they're all the same thing. It's all about storytelling.
Yeah.
Activism, when done well, is about storytelling. And so I've been really fortunate to be able to tell lots of different stories in lots of different ways.
I love that.
A big portion of what I do now is I'm also a co-founder of a streaming platform. It's called Mansa, named after Mansa Musa. We'll probably get into that later because it does connect with the work we're talking about today. Yeah. But Mansa Musa was a Malian emperor who was the wealthiest human being ever to live on Earth, still to this day. And at Mansa, the streaming platform, we hope to be able to share the wealth of Black culture with a global audience. So that's been a big portion of my storytelling in the last couple of years.
I'm so excited because sometimes it's funny that we spent so much time together, and the whole time you were holding all of that, and we never had this conversation. And I'm like, oh, I knew this already because of our experiences, just instinctively. But like, you're my people.
I knew it. I knew it the moment you took us to church on Sunday morning in the woods in California.
In the redwoods, yeah, you are definitely my people. These are the conversations that we always have over here at the Big We, and I'm happy that you mentioned Chinua Achebe, because I was going to ask you about that, because of course I'm like looking at your last name. I'm like, I know that word. That is a character in a book. Yeah. I know these folks, and so I was going to ask you about that. So I'm happy that you brought that up. So I'm curious about your time in the States and your experience as a Black artist and as someone who was like looking at the world through the lens of Black imagination, but with a much wider and international scope. We're curious about your experience in the States, because we are always thinking about what it looks like to see the world through the lens of Black imagination. And your lens is global at this point, because you've lived here in the States, you were raised in the UK, and I'm making assumptions about you based on your name, that your lineage is West African. So I am really curious about what it's like for you to be someone who is from all those places and who was living in this cultural context that we call America.
It's a great question, because growing up, so I was born in London, but both my parents are Igbo. Both my parents can trace their lineage back generations and generations in what I call Igbo land. Wow. And I make a very specific delineation between Igbo land and Nigeria. Yeah. I think the nation of Nigeria is an important nation for us, an important context for us to think about that country currently, but it's obviously not what it was always, and it's not how we defined the country. So although I think it's kind of maybe for me not important to rail against how that happened. It's history. It happened for a reason, and what we do with how it happened is really important. But I do make the definition of myself as an Igbo man really paramount in how I describe myself or how I walk through the world. The reason your question is so specifically sort of relevant and important to me is because I had that distinction just growing up. I grew up in a very Nigerian, a very Igbo household in London. So inside my household, it could have been Lagos, it could have been somewhere in Anambra State. But at the moment I walked out of my door in South London in the 80s and 90s, it was a very different experience. Yeah. Now, I think there's quite a lot for an imaginative child, me and my siblings and all my cousins, lots of young people at that time whose parents had made that journey, that immigrant story. It's such an interesting one. And I know there are huge parallels here in the US, because I have lots of friends, cousins who had the same experience. And so I guess there's a cognitive dissonance that has to happen when you feel inside of yourself, because of what your parents have instilled into you, that you are unique and special, that your voice has purpose, and that you are here for a reason to do something. And just, it happened to be the case that where I grew up and when I grew up in the UK, there wasn't a lot of that being reinforced for me outside of my household. And so I think for me, there was just always going to be a battle of, well, this doesn't make any sense outside. And so the place where I found sense was the US, in the culture that I took in the stories that I wanted to continue to tell. I was a huge theatre kid, and growing up in theatre in the UK was to constantly recount stories, especially classical theatre, that didn't necessarily include me, although I could see myself in lots of the work because of the human element. Yeah. But then I would look to American playwrights like August Wilson and just see a wealth of blackness in all its glory being portrayed. And so that's what really first attracted me to moving to the US and telling stories from this vantage point. And on to sort of round out the question, it's the place where I moved here when I was 29. So it's the place where I was able to feel most fully myself for the first time in my life. So we'll get into the details of that, because it might feel like that's a contradiction, but it's certainly true for me, and I know for many others as well.
I am fascinated by your answer. I resonate very much with the way that you described your upbringing, as I grew up the same exact way. What we had in our home was a very intentionally well-knit cultural fabric that told me and my sister, like, you're amazing because you're Black, you're amazing because you're female. Look at all of these cultural assets that you have access to. Look at this amazing history you have access to. And then you go outside and they're like, I don't know about you. And it's but I found my salve in the same things, in those, in Black artists, music, theater, film, books. That's how I was able to create a safety net for myself outside of the house. And it never occurred to me that you, growing up in the UK, would see the things that were coming out of the States and have that same sense of belonging. I'm fascinated by that. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's because of something that you just said. It was because we were Black, because we were able to take strength from our Blackness, that was able to permeate all of our art, our music, athletics, fashion, architecture. It's informed, or it's informative of so much of our experience, and that's a real strength. It's a strength for diverse societies. I don't use that word very often, and I use it very specifically here, because the diversity of cultures, of thought, are what I think knits together a strong society. And for African American culture, even though in so many ways, so many of the challenges here in the US are harsher, and I say harsher because they exist elsewhere, they exist everywhere, quite frankly. Anti-Blackness has had such a far-reaching effect on this earth, but the salve to that has been, for me, African American culture specifically, because of the strength and the endurance, and what has been now, centuries worth of us succeeding in spite of, and then also because of what we were able to hold on to, I think.
Yeah, and not only succeeding, but continue to create, in spite of. And I think for me, it is our stories that keeps us safe and keeps us hopeful and keeps us going and keeps us being able to keep an eye on the future. Which is why, the storytelling in my life and in your life and in all the places and all the people that we were with in the woods, you know what I mean? I think that it's those things that brings us together. And speaking of stories, I feel like one of the most powerful stories that I've seen all year is a story that was told in this exhibit that we saw at the DeYoung in San Francisco. And I would love just to spend a few minutes talking to you about that exhibit and our experience at that exhibit. It was so special to be able to go and see that with you. Even not knowing anything about you, having no experience with you, but just energetically being able to walk through that exhibit with you felt, like you said, it felt really magical and it felt really special. And I'm really grateful that you were like, I know what we can do. I'm really, really grateful, because I would not have seen that exhibit without you. I'm not sure I would have known it existed if it wasn't for you. So just number one, thank you.
Of course.
Number two, I do want to understand your experience of walking in the exhibit and how it felt for you and what you saw.
Yeah, I think something I really appreciated growing up was in London, which is a very cultural and historical city. Has access to so much that was so inspiring to me as a kid, whether it was the natural history museums or the art galleries, the theatre. There was always so much artistic stimulation and inspiration for me growing up. But I was the kid walking into exhibits like this, openings like this, year after year after year, excuse me. And whether I knew it or not, whether I was aware of it at the time, I certainly wasn't aware of it at the time, I was constantly having reinforced the grandeur of European settler colonial culture. And that was being reinforced and shown to me to be aspirational and worthy of deification in some instances. Mm-hmm. And yet I never saw art that so deeply and so sort of in such an entirety of who we are captures us. It was I'm getting shivers and chills just thinking about it now, because it really was a unique experience walking in. And I've seen Kehinde Wiley's work before. Yeah. I remember actually the very first time I saw a Kehinde Wiley painting in real life was at the Ford Foundation's office in New York. It's a beautiful portrait it was of this woman called Wanda Critchlow. And just to see this regal Black woman portrayed in that way, I didn't know who Kehinde was when I saw it, but I knew there was something special speaking through that portrait. And so walking in to this exhibition at the De Young, as you say, it was feeling all of that. And I'll remember this forever, you and I noticing a little girl, noticing these pictures, seeing, and I remember being that kid and being able to not even question why I would be portrayed. And it wasn't even just, having a little Black kid seeing that. It was an Indian girl and a white girl. And it was so poignant to witness this work through their eyes. So that was my first real thought, walking in and just being able to sort of let this work wash over us.
Yeah. So for folks who don't know, Kehinde Wiley is a Black American painter. He's based in New York, but he's known for these large scale paintings that are done in the style of old European, what they call the masters. We don't use that word around here, but those are folks they use that word. And these paintings are like so intricate and what you would expect to see in the Met or in the Louvre or any old museum in the world. These European paintings, very ornate and intricate, with these beautifully drawn, all white people in dramatic poses like this or with a crown or doing whatever. And Kehinde takes these young, mostly Black men and women and portrays them in these just magnificent colors and patterns and detail and humanity, and really exalts the experience of our lives in these ways. And this particular exhibit, it's called the Archaeology of Science, was really done during the pandemic and was done as a response and a commentary on police violence. And normally his paintings are of folks who are very much alive, who are in their full dignity, chin up, chest out, doing it. And these were depictions of slain Black men and women, and forced us to witness their dignity in death, and their beauty in death, and the power of their lives in death, over and over and over and over and over again. And for me, the paintings were, I can't even, I don't have words for how the paintings impacted me, but it was the sculpture that took me out.
Yeah.
It was the sculpture. And I don't think that I even knew that Kehinde Wiley did sculpture. I think I only knew him as a painter. So I was surprised to even see sculpture in there. But those pieces, my goodness.
Yeah. And so you're so right. The ways, I think the fame, quote unquote, that Kehinde Wiley's work has been able to attract has been mostly for these, like you say, these stoic, modern Black figures in portraiture and in sculpture. But to see this different side, it was absolute development of his work. I don't know his work hugely well. I've become a fan since seeing that first piece, and I saw an incredible statue of his that was in Times Square. I saw it first in Times Square in New York. Then I went down to Richmond, Virginia, and managed to see it there, and to see it in the context of Richmond, Virginia. Richmond, Virginia, by the way, is so, apart from the racial divide, it's so much like so many different cities or towns in England. It was sort of based on so many of those places, and to drive down, a main thoroughfare and see all these white generals from, wars gone by depicted in these statues that's how I grew up. I grew up seeing those. You could say on every corner, metaphorically on every corner, and to see then this young Black boy with his locks in a top knot and his Nike high tops, it was just like heroically on a horse. That again, it spoke to me in such a powerful way. But then to speak to this exhibition, like you were saying, to see Black bodies in repose, either slain, as you mentioned, or mourning the slain, or resting, taking a moment to be at rest. It was so beautifully thought through. I use this word now very specifically. It was genius, because it was taking a spiritual look at what it means to be a Black person in this time, in this day and age, in resistance, in mourning, in death, and how we interact with that as an audience. It was just so powerful.
Yeah, it was. The other thing I love about this exhibit is that because it was done during the pandemic, Kehinde was traveling internationally. So he was in Senegal and in Nigeria for the whole pandemic. And all of this work was created in Africa with African young people. So all of his art is always named after the art that inspired it, with the addition of the name of the person who was in it.
Yeah.
So you have like all these names that are not familiar to the Black American tongue, but that are very African, like Inde, like I can't remember the name of the mourning. Let me look it up. The mourning, the youth in mourning one. What was her? His name was El Haj Malik Gay. Come on, that's a Nigerian. If I ever heard it, and it was Mamadou Gay, the sleep one, the one. Remember the one the guy was like turned to the side. That the beauty of connecting the story of our perception of Black American young people who are involved in police violence, and having these Nigerian and Senegalese young people portraying those stories just felt like something that was so perfect you couldn't have designed it, right? Like, sure, it was a detail of circumstance because of where he was and when he was and why he was traveling. But for me, having those folks represent these stories that for me, as somebody who grew up in America, is such a part of the fabric of what it means to be Black in America. And to your point, what it means to be Black all over the world, and like the violence that our bodies have to endure as Black folks. But for me, that made it all the better. It just made it so much sweeter for me.
Yeah. And that bridge, it's so amazing to hear you say that, because it's so powerful to feel that connection between, some of my culture and it being represented here in the US. And like I say, like I've lived in America now for a really, really long time. And even though I sound like this, I part of my mission, my purpose, I would say, is to be part of building bridges between the African continent and others in the diaspora, whether that's African Americans or throughout the diaspora. And that's exactly, I'm so interested into Kehinde Wiley's why for being there, because it's exactly what this work does. It builds a bridge. It connects us so directly. And that connection exists. It's there throughout African American culture and history. It really is. Like, you only have to spend some time, a small amount of time in Louisiana or in parts of the South to really see a symmetry between how my parents grew up in east of Nigeria and how folks in Louisiana were cooking food and making music, and the culture is there. That through line is there, and so artists, storytellers, people who are able to build that bridge and connect us and find our shared blackness, quite frankly, that's a real skill, and it's something that I'm really here for.
That made me so happy to find our shared blackness. That made me so happy. Yes. Yeah, because I'm taking an unexpected shift here, but to me, that is Black abundance. I was telling you earlier that the theme of this season is Black abundance. And when I hear you say, like, to finding our shared blackness, that feels so rich and juicy to me. That made me so happy to hear you say that. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to talk about Mansa because it's so funny. This is terrible I'm about to say. This is terrible.
Do it.
I definitely grew up in a house where I had to do Black History reports in the summertime. So, like, I know who Mansa Musa is, but when I hear you say it, all I can think about is Beyonce saying, Mansa Musa 400 Billy. Tell us about it.
Oh, man.
So terrible. Tell us about.
No, it's good. That was a great album. So Mansa is a curated platform, streaming platform. It's a curated platform of Black culture for a global audience. Now, when we talk about Black culture, we understand and we know that Black culture is American culture. It's popular culture. It's the most far-reaching. It's the most impactful of every form of art, and that's not to say it from a standpoint of, oh, look at this thing that we have. No, we've been so connected to our desire to make sure that our work is given, that they can reach as far as and as wide as it possibly can. But the time has to come where Black people then benefit from that work, because so much of that work is built on our backs, and we don't benefit from it either in the boardroom, on the cap tables of these companies, or as artists in the way that our work is disseminated. We don't get to continue to have ownership in our work. So Mansa has been founded on a basis of, or a thesis of, the fact that we want to make sure that we can build generational wealth within this art form. The most powerful art form that there is in sharing stories, in seeding culture. It's just such a powerful art form. And so because we excel, because of our excellence, because of our abundance, it's important to us at Mansa that we are able to show the length and breadth of Black culture in the work that we put out there, whether it's long form, feature films, or short form, or TV shows, or user-generated content. We want to, we want to be able to show that wealth to the world. And there's a parallel actually in why we named the company. Mansa Musa took his Hajj to Mecca with his retinue, with thousands of people, and went from Mali in the west of Africa, cross continent, and through Egypt on his way to Mecca. And he would give gifts along the way. He would drop gold, and he left so much gold in Egypt that it crashed the economy of Egypt for 10 years, because gold was so abundant and so prevalent that the economy just couldn't right itself for 10 years. Now, we're not hoping to crash any economies, but we are saying to Black artists, to Black people in general, let's start now, or continue now, to share our wealth with the world, but let's benefit from it in the process. That there's so much that we have given away, and now it's time for us to retain ownership, and it's time for us to really share with our village what it is to create, and to have the fruits of our labor come from that.
One of the things that I love about the story you just told is that I often talk about how abundance for some is not abundance at all, that's still scarcity if there are still people who are left behind. And telling the story of him going through and just like leaving things behind. Like, I have all of this. Let me make sure that you have some too. Just
Mm-hmm.
makes it really great. And it's funny listening to you talk again. I'm like, oh, you're my people, because the conversations that we have here in Memphis and across the South in our storytelling, in the work that we're doing around real estate development and entrepreneurship and all that, is really all about how do we build wealth for the whole community, and how do those of us who are entrepreneurial or who are storytellers or who are like stepping out in front of the conversation can not just be thinking about ourselves, but be thinking about the whole. And I'm curious about, because I love that you described the platform as like a global storytelling mechanism. And I'm interested to hear you talk about how y'all are mining stories and where you see this going in terms of like being able to, like, where's the Mansa Musa epic journey film? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's a movie I would like to see.
Likewise. We're at the beginning of our journey, and it's been really, really already just such an incredible thing to witness, because first of all, on the business side, on the entrepreneurial side, we've had such great support from our investors, from people who've caught the vision, who've caught this inspiration from what we're doing, and said, yeah, I'm going to support you with my dollars to see that dream come to realization. And then secondly, for, like I say, artists. So right now what we do is we license work. We license existing work. And so work that might have fallen through the cracks at other places, that hasn't necessarily been given the shine or the love that it deserves. Yeah. We often talk about the fact that with the platforms that exist currently, there's a cherry picking that happens. There's a black bucket on certain platforms. Yes. And we'll cherry pick the tip of the iceberg. And if you're the tip of the iceberg, if you're well known, if you're, whatever, we'll put you in our black bucket, quote unquote. For Mansa, what we are doing is we're mining the entire iceberg and saying there is so much work, there's so much greatness that comes from Black and brown people on this continent and in the world. Why don't we curate? And that word's important, curate, because just like we saw at Kehinde Wiley's exhibition, there's a curation process that happens for artists themselves. They decide the story that they want to tell, but it is, and all art, even individual arts like music or fine art. When I say individual, of course, Beyonce doesn't do it all on her own, and neither does Kehinde Wiley. But those art forms, they're a collaboration in curating how we experience the work. Yes. How the Renaissance tour this summer was curated so that we could experience it in a certain way. That's what we want to do with Mansa. We want to make sure that we're able to. It's not saying that we think this person's the best, so they get to be on the platform. No, it's this idea, this thought process, this part of Black culture that we haven't yet seen experienced in this way is what we're really hoping to do as we move forward, and having that on the platform. And then to your thank you for your big dreams for us already, but that's the hope. We've seen there are, if you know, and I'm sure lots of people do know, there are strikes that have been happening in Hollywood, all over. In fact, in so many industries, healthcare, automotive. With AI in the offing, I think there is definite unease with the way that systems have been built that have been extractive. I don't have any data for this at all, but extractive systems, I think, are antithetical to Blackness. It just doesn't seem to be how we've built, how we've vibed in the world. And so I think, look, I'm happy for collaboration to exist. I'm happy for ownership to be retained by Black people who work with those systems. Yeah. But I do think there's a new system that can be built, which is not extractive, which is saying we use this term a lot when we were really at the beginnings of thinking about Mansa, about how do we create our village and say to people, come and be a part of our village, come and spend time with us. Yeah. So a village in its sort of, the way it's formed, a village is the opposite of extractive. Every part of that has to be cohesive. The whole has to be more than the sum of its parts. Yeah. So when it comes to doing the big work that you speak of course, we'd love to be able to invest in certain pieces of work down the line, and I'm sure we will. But for now, it's about making sure that we can curate and find pieces that have up until this point not received the love, and then we can give them some shine and give them some love and make sure that people can connect with them.
Yeah, we talk about our work in a similar way here. We say that our mission is to be and build beloved community, really in the tradition of church-based civil rights, king, sanitation workers, and Ella Baker, all of that. That is kind of the way we talk about our work too. And we feel like our job is to figure out what it means to be together, and then figure out how to open up and make space for other people to be together too. I love that y'all are thinking about your work as building a village. And I think you're right. Extraction is not natural for us. When we are being extractive, it is because we are mimicking behaviors of other cultures because we feel like we can get something, get ahead, be safe.
or to survive.
Yeah.
And so I understand that. I do, but it's coming back now. It's coming full circle, and it's only right and proper for me that it's so much of this abundance that we're seeing, especially in art, in artistry, and in storytelling, is coming from African American culture.
Yeah.
It's like I get chills again because it's just so poetic that would be the case.
It is, and as someone who used to work in the music industry, I know that entertainment industry is very extractive, specifically to Black folks, and I'm so grateful that y'all are really thinking. So you're being so thoughtful about being able to create a new way of being when it comes to storytelling and industry, and being able to generate commerce. Using, I love this very much. I love this very much. How do we become a part of Mansa? How do we join your village?
Oh, you can do it right now. You can get if you're on your phone listening to this podcast, you can just go in App Store or Google Play and type in Mansa, MANSA.
Yes.
It will come up as Mansa Stream, and you can download the app, sign up. On the platform, you can, like you're used to, there are library titles. You can go and watch a film or a TV show. But something we're really proud of are our fast channels, which is just old-fashioned television. But we've curated these channels. So, for example, in September, back on Beyonce's birthday, we had a Bay Watch, BEY Watch channel. And it's done so well for us because we were able to aggregate and curate so much content that was being captured around Beyonce's tour. And so on our FAST channels, FAST stands for free ad-supported television. You're able to just tune in. If you want to see black hair, you can go in there and see lots of stuff about black hair. If you want to see Beyonce, whatever it might be, Nollywood has been a really popular thing for us because there's so many brilliant
movie around here. Chiké, love it.
and so the most important thing for me to share about Mansa is that it's free. It's free ad-supported television and film. It's an ad video on demand platform. Wow. So you don't have to pay anything. We hope it stays that way forever, and we want to make sure that there isn't a barrier to us being able to consume our own work. And yeah, cool. Thank you. And also, this is important to state as well. We know that Black culture isn't only consumed by Black people. It's not. We're not specifically saying, although this is of us and from us and by us, it's for all, as it has always been the case. And so we're appreciative that whether you're Black, white, or otherwise, you can come and enjoy and be part of the village.
I love
There's room for you all.
I love that. Okay, so before we go, I just have curiosity about you as a storyteller. I know that you're an actor. I'm assuming that you are either producing already or moving into producing or writing or something. So I'm really curious about the stories that are on your heart and what you want to put into the world right now. I know that there are things that you can and cannot do and can and cannot say, but I'm just very deeply curious about you as a storyteller in this moment, and I want to know what you're manifesting.
That's a really powerful word, manifest, because it's how I feel. I've been really fortunate to experience my career as an artist. Look, I'm not going to make any bones about it. I was attracted to this art form because I enjoyed it so much. As a kid, I just loved that feeling of being in collective spaces and sharing stories. It was just massive to me. It was a huge part of what formed my personality and who I am as a person, and how I just got so much enjoyment from life. Being in these groups and having this goal of creating this thing, whether it was a film or a TV show or a piece of theatre. So that listening to that led me to the US. And once I got here, I live in Brooklyn now, and I'm so happy to be back here. I lived for 10 years in California and love being in LA, but because it's the seat of where the work is made. But there's something about the energy of New York that I've just always vibed with, the energy of Brooklyn that is abundant, quite frankly, especially for Black people.
Yes.
And it's not to say that there isn't other sides. Of course, there always are. But if you're able to catch the spirit and be inspired by your environment, there is something here in New York that's very special. So I say that, I sort of preface what I'm about to say with that, because I want to continue to be able to tune into what it is that God has for me, that Spirit is leading me to. And that's constantly been work that shows my humanity, and I hope and think by extension, the humanity of people who look like me.
Yes.
Whether it's, and look, I've been really fortunate. So I was, one of my first films when I got here was with Nate Parker. It's a film called The Birth of a Nation. Now, on the surface, that might seem as though it's a film about enslavement, but it's not. It's a film about revolution.
Yes.
And that speaks to me. That sort of work speaks to me about who I am, what I can do to get outside of a situation that I'm in.
Yeah.
And that's what I played in that film. I played a man who was able to even dream of what it might look like to be outside of the situation that he found himself in. The same is true of being Mary Jane in so many ways, because it was a show that I think so many people connected to, because Gabrielle Union's character in that show was able to be fully who she was. She was able to experience life in all its fullness, the ups and downs, the highs and the lows. And that's so, I think, present in, still to this day, people speak to me about that show, even though we filmed it almost 10 years ago. It's so nice to be part of work like that. So that's the sort of work that I'd like to continue to do, work that shows us who we are and who we can be and how we can live in the abundance that you guys have been speaking about on this podcast. Because
I'm so happy I know you.
Because that's really why I like to do art. I like to be involved in art, and part of creating it is because it can inspire us, and it has constantly inspired me. So I hope to inspire others through the work that I do, both as an artist, an actor, a writer, producer, as you mentioned, and also in my work that I do with the company, with Mansa. That's really what it's all about.
Incredible. What an incredible person. I'm so grateful to have some time with you again. It wasn't as fun this time as it was traipsing across the city and eating Chinese food, but it was fun today.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about the Chinese food, the incredible Chinese food we had in San Francisco.
What a meal. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for not just today, but for all of the things that you're doing. Really, honestly, you're such an amazing contribution to the planet. I'm really grateful for your life, for your stories, and for your family, and just thank you for showing up for all of us so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Everybody go download Mansa right now. I'm going to download it as soon as we hang up. I'm going to download it because I believe in apps. I'm like, if I can pay $14.99 for Netflix, I can get Mansa for free. And
Exactly.
All right, so your subscriptions are going to go through the roof.
I can't wait. I appreciate you all. Thank you for providing this space, Anasa, and thank you so much for listening, guys. It's I constantly feel like we're in this together, and we are strong because of our togetherness. Okay. This is something I want to leave you with, actually, as far as abundance, because again, I don't think we should be afraid of our joint history, but when we have been so intentionally separated for so many generations, when specific work was done to separate us, there is an abundance in our coming together. Wow. There is an abundance in our being able to break bread with each other, to be able to share stories with each other. So that's my real abundance that I'm leaning into now, is just our togetherness. And I'm happy to be together with you all here.
there's a real power in the fact that you as a human being and your physicality actually are embodying the rejoining, right? Because of your heritage, because of your upbringing, because of where you live and how you live now, all of the pieces are living in you. They're living in your DNA, they're living in your lived experience, they're living in your storytelling. And folks like you are required for us to be able to have touch points for us to be able to rejoin each other. And so that's a whole, like, I'm going to talk to you for a whole nother hour just about what it feels like, or what it feels like to be someone who is like embodying that reunification and who is holding that abundance in your actual body as you walk through the world. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Bless you. Thank you. And it's, again, you're able to tap into certain things, and I'm sure, you know, you do that on this podcast with the people you speak to, and I've certainly seen you do that in the work that you do and how you hold space. But it really is an important part for me. But it's not. This is the great thing I think about Blackness as well, and about our village mentality, or the way that we can create. It's not about individuals. It's certainly about the whole for me, and I feel very, very grateful to be alive in this time, to be able to be part of teams like Mansa, like the stories I'm part of telling, because it's a really, really powerful time to continue to push ourselves forward, continue to dream and see how far we can go in achieving those dreams. And I believe we can go all the way.
We're giving birth to the new way. We're doing it together.
This is true.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, can't wait.
All right. See you next episode. Have a fantastic week.